Eagles. Eagles.
Good morning. Welcome in, everybody, to a football 24/7 edition on this morning. No Birds 365. Again, this morning, that will be a nighttime edition tonight with John McMullen. We're hoping to talk to John in about 7 or 8 minutes here on football 24/7 to preview day 9, everybody. Day 9 of practice is here. They're moving right along in camp. This is their third day of 4 straight practices. So they had Sunday, Monday. Today is Tuesday with their third day, and they will be on the field again tomorrow, Wednesday morning. So third of 4 straight days, kind of the dog days of summer, as John McMullen called it, with 4 straight practices, where in the modern NFL, you don't get that too much. There's no 2-a-days, there's no stuff like that. So these are the dog days of summer for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we are here. A lot of good storylines coming out of camp that we're going to talk about this morning. We'll have John coming up, as I mentioned, to preview the day, what the schedule is like, both today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week, obviously, with the preseason game on Friday. Got a good crowd in here this morning so far. Cody K, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here. Suplex, Ty Banks is in here. Jason A-Team, Eduardo Reza, Daz is in here. What's up, Daz? Bruce Banner. A lot of good people in here. Mr. Perez, Jason A-Team, Joe Whip. What's up, Joe Whip? Jimmy Wen. What's up, Jimmy? How you doing, brother? Thanks for being here, my man. Rashid Mixon. Rashid, how you been? Callie Baby. What's up, Callie Baby? Stephen Patton. Crowley's in here. Appreciate all you guys being here this morning. Let's get into some good stuff. Another good practice yesterday for the Philadelphia Eagles. I will say, I don't want to be too eagle-colored glasses, but I will say, as a fan of the team, I'm sure most of you are fans of the team. It's been all positive. I think this is about exactly as the Eagles would have hoped camp started this year. They came off OTAs. Offense didn't look good. There was some talk, with the final press conference of Jalen. How is Jalen and Nick? And you know how it was. It was a lot of drama, and it was unnecessary, and it was exacerbated by the 1-7 collapse last year at the end of the year. So you come into camp, Jalen Hurts has been lights out every single practice. You heard John, the range last year was bad to great at practice. This year it's been good to very good to excellent. And so when it's not even a bad day. I mean, it's a great day or a good day instead of a perfect day. And he has been lights out. And I think, obviously, look, this is the NFL. QB1 is the most important player on the football team. With how good he's been in camp, my optimism level continues to rise for this team. And I'm getting excited. Callie Baby with a good point here checks in. Nah, you're not lying, Xander. Things almost been too positive. Listen, I don't want to go there because I hear you, but we have a talented football team. We have a lot of players on this football team. We have a lot of people who could take us all the way on this football team. And I understand, Negadelphia in a way lives in all of us, where we're so used to it. And we, even me as being up here, and I guess I don't view myself as the media, but I guess I would be viewed as the media, talking to John every day and just doing content. Negadelphia, like I said, is in our blood, but I'm not even going there. I mean, the defense, I have some questions, admittedly, and I think everybody in here does that's honest with themselves. Nakobe Dean is a big question for me. The whole linebacking core is a big question for me. Bryce Huff is probably my biggest question on defense, because if he can't get home, the edge rushers are going to be a problem this year. But you want to hear that the $175 million offense is working, that Kellen Moore was the right hire for quarterback one, Jalen Hurts, and everything is just working right now. It just is working. There's not much bad to say. You don't even hear beat reporters talking bad. I mean, you talk about guys who are Negadelphia. Most of them are looking for stuff, and there's just not much to talk about. So it's been a perfect start to training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're lacking a little bit of talent on that defensive side of the football, but hopefully Vic Fangio can pull the most out of them. If you want to go positive on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's positive what you're hearing from Jordan Davis. I think it's very positive what you're hearing from Jalen Carter. We expected it more from Jalen Carter. Obviously, a very talented player. You heard John say he's one of the most talented players he's ever seen come into the league. He thinks he will take over A.J. Brown as his top spot next year as the most talented Philadelphia Eagle, the best player at their position. Not the most impactful, because that's always Jalen Hurts, but that's how good Jalen Carter is. So very excited about him, and I'm very excited about Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, listen, these are rookies. Rookie Quinyon Mitchell is, namely. You don't expect these guys to come in and be great off the jump. And when you hear what you've heard about Quinyon, now there's been some questions, there's been some stuff, and he's playing more on the inside right now than on the outside, and I don't think that's where the Eagles want him. But when you hear him lining up with AJ, when you hear him having good reps with the first team, I mean, look, there's a lot to take that's positive from the defense. And when I say I'm concerned on the defense, I'm not as concerned on the defense long term. I just wonder how long it's going to take to get him going this year. And we're not playing for 25 right now. We're playing for 24, right? So we got to go get that Super Bowl this year. We got to go make that playoff run this year. And that's where my concern lies with the defense. But shoot, if you want me to look ahead to 25, which I'm not going to do, but think about this team, guys. We haven't had a defense that's had this much young talent in a long time. I mean, we think Jalen Carter is going to be great this year. I believe he will be. Imagine him in 25, 3 years into the league. Jordan Davis, another year into the league. Quinyon Mitchell, who has starting reps. Keely Ringo, who's getting up to speed. Isaiah Rodgers, if we keep him around. Cooper DeJean, another year under their belt. CJ Gardner-Johnson. I mean, this defense is loaded with young talent. And that's we haven't had that in a long time. So I think the defense, it's a couple years behind the offense with how we built the offense first. But I think the defense has a real chance in the next couple of years to be really good. But when you talk about 24, the upcoming season here, Bryce Huff, as I mentioned, is my biggest question mark. Daz checks in. Good comment from Daz. Bryce Huff better be legit or we are in trouble. I agree, Daz. You signed the guy. John is kind of downplaying that we need him to be a 3-down player. So I guess, if the focus is on pass rushing, if he can get home, he was a good signing. But boy, he better get home then. He better get home, because you got to look at the other edge rushers. Brandon Graham, 36. Josh Sweat, I think, is your best 3-down edge rusher, but he can't play that big snap load like he did last year. You saw the production drop off if he doesn't. And then Nolan Smith, I think he could be a player in the future. I don't know how much of a role he'll have this year, but he's not a 3-down line. He's not a 3-down edge rusher. He's an undersized, speedy type of edge rusher, kind of like a Hassan Reddick type. So if Bryce Huff is not going to be legit, you're right. We're going to have big questions at that edge position. I think Howie knows that, though. So we'll see what he wants to do about it. Good crowd here. Welcome, everybody. And I appreciate all of you guys being here. A bunch of great comments. Hoping to talk to John here shortly to preview day 9 of practice today at training camp. As I mentioned, very optimistic coming into the year. I think it's been a great start to training camp. You've seen I know I don't put too much in Jalen and Nick and riding around in the cart, but that doesn't look like two guys that hate each other. I get it. Maybe that doesn't matter, and maybe it's a small glimpse or it's overrated, but they're obviously not at odds. Maybe they didn't see everything eye to eye, but welcome to being a professional. I mean, go into your work environment. I'm sure all of you have, work environments and coworkers and people you're with every day, or whether it's family or friends or coworkers. You're not going to agree with everybody all the time, and I think Jalen and Nick, look like they're at least happy to be around each other, or at least are on the same page in terms of they understand there's a common goal here, even if they have different ways to get there. So I think that's a positive thing. Obviously, you don't want to see, the coach-quarterback relationship deteriorate, because that means the team is going to deteriorate. That's the most important relationship out there. And I don't think it has to be we like one another. I think it has to be we respect one another. And we're going to put each other's best interests first, and the team's best interests first. And I hope that the coach and quarterback can get to that, but I don't think we've seen anything in camp that would insinuate the opposite. So I think that's a very positive thing. I'm excited about that. Nick Sirianni's gotten a lot of talk, obviously, this offseason. Bruce Banner says, yeah, my coworker is a C word. Bruce, good stuff. Good stuff, but you got to go in and you got to work with them every day, right, brother? You can't go in and start fights with them. So, but listen, there's been a lot of questions on Nick Sirianni, and I get it. I was kind of in the boat where I wanted them to move off him after the year last year, just because I thought he lost it in a way. I thought he lost the team. I thought he lost the quarterback. And I was ready to move on. But when you bring the guy back and then you zoom out a little bit, you're like, okay, forget the 1-7 for a second. Let's look at the total body of work. Let's look at what Nick Sirianni's done. He's been largely successful in this league. So you can't just take that away from him. That context matters. So Nick Sirianni has seen more wins than he has losses. He's seen more good times than he has bad, and he's coached them through all of it. So you got to think, all right, maybe he analyzed, maybe he saw what he did wrong. There's lessons in there, and I think Nick learned them, and hopefully he has another big year. Looks like I have John McMullen. So let's go to our man in the arena. Johnny Mack will join us now. Johnny Mack, do I have your brother?
Yeah, in the car, not in the arena yet, but yeah, sometimes it takes a couple minutes. You got to stop. You got to do the whole rigmarole. It's not like a phone.
No, yeah, I know. It's different. People don't understand that. This isn't like a call-in number. But, John, we appreciate you being here. Drive safely down there right now. Let's get into it a little bit, John. Overall, John, I said, and I want to get your take on this. Overall, I said, boy, this has been a positive start to camp. I know we have our questions, and, there's some spots on the defense you're wondering about, and, do they have the talent there they need to succeed? But overall, coming off of OTAs, when you think back on the storylines of July and late June, we had a lot of questions about Jalen and Nick, about the offense. Jalen didn't look comfortable yet in the offense. This has been a very positive start to training camp, John, at least from my perspective. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think so. I think mainly from the perspective of I think it's obvious what the strength of this team is, and that's the offense, and they're performing very well. So in the thought process of they're going to have to carry the team to a certain extent, especially maybe early, I think that's, a very good sign. If the offense was struggling, which was the case in the spring, then you have all those questions popping up. Yeah, I mean, they've done a tremendous job early in camp. We'll get to talk to Kellen Moore in a little bit here before practice. He's got to be happy. I'm sure he's going to underinflate it. He's not going to go over the top. But, yeah, they've been extremely sharp with their first-team offense, with the potential exception of a couple days here and there where the interior offensive line was a problem, but I think it has more to do with the injuries, and those injuries are not serious injuries. So it just kind of jumbles you up for a day or two at practice, and it's not going to be long-term stuff. Obviously, if you start having torn ACLs and torn pecs and things that are going to cost you potentially the season, those are different injuries than an ankle sprain that cost Tyler Steen a week. So they've had some problems there, but that's rich people problems if you're struggling for a week. So, it's been mainly 90% positive for the first team offense.
Good stuff there, John. Let's talk a little bit about that offensive line. First, I want to go to Cam Jurgens, who left a little early yesterday. I don't know if you have a full update on where he is or what it was. Does it look like it could be serious? No concern there. What should we be thinking about Cam Jurgens coming into day 9 here?
We'll get a better indication this morning, but I don't think the early word I got was they don't think it's terribly serious. So, I think he's going to be day to day. If it's nothing, he might even be back out there today. So it's always kind of scary when you see players and meaningful players, and that's certainly what Cam Jurgens is at this point for the Philadelphia Eagles, taking over for Jason Kelce. And they're walking in. It's always a little bit of a worry, but first off, the fact that he could walk in on his own is a positive, and early indications are it's not terribly serious.
What was it, John? Was it a lower body injury, a leg? What was it?
Don't know yet. I'll know this morning.
Got it.
All I got word from, I kind of looked at a certain someone, and he basically said he's going to be fine. So don't know what he's dealing with yet. I'll know that later this morning. And everybody, when I put out the practice report early in practice, we'll get to see if there's an injury, or if it were, on a day like that, it could even be heat yesterday.
Yeah, it's true.
So there's a bunch of things it could have been, but that early indication was the Eagles don't think it's terribly serious.
And you didn't see it. He wasn't favoring anything when he walked off. It wasn't like that. He walked off in his own power, and you didn't see it. Like, if somebody hurts their right leg, you
No,
see him
there's,
limping.
like when McAllen Castles got injured at the Lincoln Financial Field practice, you could see him limping really badly on his right leg, and right away. In the case, even if you go back to Tyler Steen, when he just walked slowly off the field with what turned out to be an ankle injury, he really wasn't favoring anything. So, that's, it's tough to do that. You got to be David Chow to do that immediate film work on
Right.
what these injuries are. But sometimes they're obvious and sometimes they're not.
Got it. So hopefully Cam Jurgens is all right. John, I want to ask you about Tyler Steen. He was back in pads yesterday. He didn't do the team drills or anything, but, it seems like he's going to start to ramp back up. You think he's going to get put back in first team at that right guard position?
Yeah, it's one of the interesting stories. I do think that the Eagles are enamored with Mekhi Becton, and the thought of having that kind of talent on the field and unlocking it, which the Jets weren't able to do on a consistent basis. I think there's a lot of confidence in Jeff Stoutland. But while I say all that, I do think people have been too quick to jump to that conclusion, because there's a number of balls in play when it comes to that decision. And one of them, beyond just, the size, the immense size, which I talked about with Jalen Hurts, you don't see too many 6'8" guards for a reason. That's going to make it difficult. And you saw it yesterday. He was one of the guys who got beat for the safety with Jordan Davis. Leverage is a big thing with especially interior offensive linemen, and you'll hear all the time, you got to get your pads low. And it's very difficult for a 6'8" guy to get his pads low. So that's number one. That's the obvious. But the less obvious is, Jeff Stoutland doesn't like moving parts. He says it all the time. He said it many times over the years. You can look at the practice where Tyler Steen got injured, and it became a story because he left mid-practice, and Darian Kennard was inserted as the first-team right guard. It wasn't Mekhi Becton, who was healthy that day. It wasn't Matt Hennessy, who was the other more obvious option. And one of the reasons he did it is because he didn't want to screw up the practice plan. And that's just practice. That's not a game. So he doesn't like moving parts. And, Mekhi was brought in to be the swing tackle, mainly. Game day swing tackle in case Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata get banged up. And if he's the starting right guard, well, if that scenario happens, you can move him out to tackle, but then you have to affect two positions, and then you got to bring in a right guard off the bench. So generally, Jeff Stoutland has not liked to do that. It's not like he won't. He could, and the Eagles could just say that and say, let's get our best five on the field. But that's another sort of I think, reported thing that factors in. If Mekhi Becton's the starting right guard, I don't know if he's going to be the swing tackle, and that affects your depth in ways that maybe they don't want to go down.
Yeah, so we'll see what they end up doing at that position. All eyes kind of on that position, especially as Tyler Steen returns. I'll be curious to see if they go with Mekhi Becton to solidify the Great Wall of Philly, as our buddy Joe Whipp in the
It
chat
wasn't
has
so
dubbed it.
great when Jordan Davis was busting through for a safety. So they've had some issues on the interior.
Yeah.
And, the good news is the injuries, none of them have been serious. So, it might look bad in the moments, but it should settle down.
Good stuff, John. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. John, we're 8 practices deep in this thing, and 9's coming up today. Is it 8-0 offense right now?
No, but I mean, you could argue that the best the defense has done is a stalemate. I had yesterday as kind of a stalemate. You could have given it to the defense. I'm sure many people did, because they had a few more splash plays. They had the safety. They had the big blown up screen by Zach Baum. They had the interception, the pick 6 from Sean Stevens on the 13th. So, judging by the splash plays, you can say, all right, the defense won that one. But, there's the AJ factor, the Devontae factor, who are dominating and have been basically uncoverable, which is not a surprise. And Jalen still hasn't thrown an interception through 8 practices. I know Elliott's chomping at the bit, because if he throws 13 passes today, he sets the all-time training camp record per Elliott Shore Parks of passes without an interception. So it's rare when you see no interceptions at training camp, because it's a time to work on different things. Again, it's not a game-like situation. Sometimes you'll throw a pass that maybe you wouldn't throw in a game, because you're like, well, let me see. Let me test let me test how far I can go with this throw. And you get an interception that way. And there have been a couple. Kaylee Ringo dropped one that was right at him in a red zone drill that should have been an interception. So there's some luck involved. There's always some luck involved. But, to not throw an interception this deep into camp is rare, to put it mildly.
John, a lot of sights on a lot of players as we enter the year, especially specifically on the defensive side of the football. Any big disappointments from you? I know you don't view it as in the lens of, you're not a fan of the team, so you're not looking at it from, I wanted this guy to be good and he's not good, but just from a expectation perspective, from your, on your opinion or on what you think a player was going to be. Any player really let you down, or has been a disappointment, or not lived up to the expectation as you've seen 8 practices now? Any player out there that looks like a liability that you didn't think would be?
Well, nobody can let me down, because, like you said, and not meeting expectations. I would say the narrative is Bryce Huff, the obvious one, because of sort of Vic set that alarm bell off. And I think not everybody, but I think a lot of reporters jumped on that and said, what's going on with Bryce Huff? And then they said they started to pay more attention, and it's hard to get by Jordan Mailata. It's hard to get by Lane Johnson when he's out there. And where are the splash plays? Where's the rush? And so from that perspective, I've talked about it quite a bit. I'm not worried about him as a pass rusher. I'm really not. The other parts of it, he's not getting paid for that. Like I said, he's getting paid like Hassan Reddick got paid. Nobody cared that Hassan wasn't great setting the edge, and nobody cared that Hassan was pretty bad dropping into coverage. Nobody cared, because he got to the quarterback. If he gets to the quarterback, none of that other stuff will matter. But he's got to get to the quarterback. And I think he will. He's not going to face Lane Johnson every week. He's not going to face Jordan Mailata every week. He'll face some very good offensive tackles, and maybe those are slower weeks. But I think he'll clean up against the mediocre tackles, or just the pedestrian tackles around the league. And I think ultimately he's going to be fine. but I think he's the guy that everybody's focused on because, and understandably so. I mean, they signed him to not only $17 million a year, but also to replace Hassan Reddick, who's pretty damn good here.
Yeah,
so
very productive. Yep.
So the expectations are very high, and he doesn't look like right now that he's going to meet them. But again, I think people lose out in the context. I mean, there aren't 17 Lane Johnsons out there.
Yeah, but here, let me ask you this then. I get it. I understand you're not gonna beat Lane Johnson every time. I don't care who you are in practice. You're just not. And you could probably say the same about Jordan Mailata. So I understand that. But last year you watched camp and you watched Hassan Reddick for the last 2 years. This year you're watching Bryce Huff. Do the players look comparable? Do they look like they're in the same ballpark as players in the league? You talk about Devontae and AJ, and you're like, boy, they're just so damn good. They're almost boring. Like, you can see it when you watch the players. How does Bryce Huff look when you compare him to what you saw from Hassan Reddick in the past?
It's interesting because I had this conversation with a couple reporters, and we all came to the conclusion it's tough to divorce because we've seen what Hassan has been in, when the real bullets are flying.
Right. So it's hard to just pull out what he was in training camp. Exactly.
But and that's why I was talking. I was like, I don't remember Hassan standing out in training camp, and everybody agreed. And I think it's for the same reason, to be honest. I don't remember that first year going, oh, Hassan Reddick's going to be a 20-sack guy en route to the Super Bowl and be fourth in Defensive Player of the Year. I didn't get that feeling at all. And trying to put my spot back there, he's going against Lane Johnson. He's going against that kind of, he was mainly on that side. Occasionally flips, same thing with Huff. I didn't get that feeling. So that's part of the reason why I factor in I'm not as concerned as maybe some others are.
We'll see. Hopefully Bryce Huff can, at least be comparable to Hassan Reddick. I don't see it yet, but I also don't see the player every day. So I don't, my opinion is just that. It's an opinion that I don't think he's going to live up to the production that Hassan Reddick had.
Well,
admittedly, it's a big feat. Yeah, it's tough to do. It's not everybody's going to get 16 sacks.
Yeah, there's two guys in the NFL that have 4 consecutive years of double-digit sacks, and Hassan's one of them. So, I mean, that's not a big sample size. Part of it is you have to stay healthy, but he's very consistent as a pass rusher. But I will say, in obviously much more limited playing time with a better supporting cast, so you can add in all that context. Like, Huff's pressure numbers were significantly better than Hassan's. Can that expand from 440 snaps to 800 plus? That's a big question mark. But he does not strike me. I do not worry. Like, all we talk about with Jalen Carter is Jordan Davis' conditioning. I do not think that's going to be a problem with Bryce Huff at all.
So you're saying he's going to be able to play the snaps. It's just a question of how productive will he be in those snaps.
Yeah. But high energy player, very, very, Brandon Graham like motor never stops type of guy. I don't worry about that aspect. The people start to get used to him and take advantage of his lack of size and all that stuff. That all is real. But I don't worry about the uptick in snaps from a conditioning standpoint with him. I worry about it with others. I don't worry about it with him.
We'll see what Bryce Huff can do this year. Hopefully, we need him to have a big year, if this defense is going to be successful. So we'll see what Bryce Huff is able to do this year. John, I want to ask you about one more guy in the defense, and that's Nakobe Dean. A lot of mixed reviews right now coming out of camp on Nakobe Dean. He's a player that a lot of people have expectation on, right? Everybody was jacked up when they got him in the 3rd round. They thought he was going to be our fix at linebacker. Even coming into the year, you heard Howie Roseman talking his press conference about Nakobe Dean. Fangio doesn't seem so high on the player. Will Nakobe Dean reach what we need him to be this year as a linebacker for the team?
Well, it depends where your expectations are. I mean, my old partner, as you know, Jody, had him in a gold jacket the moment he stepped in the building. So, yeah, I don't think you're seeing that.
No, I'm not expecting that. But how about a starting caliber linebacker that plays and is somewhat serviceable? I'm not asking him to beat TJ Edwards, but we can't have another situation like we had last year with Nick Morrow. So maybe in between those two guys.
Well, I think Nick Morrow gets too much crap, to be honest.
I'm just saying, John, last year the linebackers weren't good enough.
Nick Morrow had some really good games last year.
Yeah, he had the 3 seconds. I'm not trying to pick on Nick. I'm just saying last year the linebackers weren't good enough. The year before that, they were pretty darn good with Edwards and White. Will Kobe Dean be able to at least get us closer to that level?
A lot of that should have been pointed at Howie more than anybody else.
Agreed.
The rare point at Howie. But, from Nick's standpoint, he had really good games and really bad games. So he wasn't consistent. And, you want a more consistent player from week to week. And Zach Cunningham was just kind of okay. But, yeah, I think he could reach that level. He's been good in run support. He's been good as a blitzer. He's been very good as a blitzer, which isn't as important in this defense, but nonetheless.
15% of plays, max.
Yeah, I mean, he's very good going downhill, and he struggled very badly in coverage. And, Vic was talking about 3-down linebackers and how they have to be so effective in coverage. So that part of it is an issue. And maybe you got to piecemeal it. Maybe that's why, Devin White looks like he's going to be the 3-down linebacker, the dime linebacker. So if there's only one linebacker on the field, it's probably going to be him. At least he's athletic. I think it's from their standpoint. That's how they look at it. At least he can run with guys. I don't know if the instincts are there. We'll see. But Nakobe has looked obscenely bad in pass coverage. It's not just Kenny Gainwell, because Kenny, I said this, and Kenny Gainwell's the most underrated football player on this team. I was talking to Saquon about Kenny yesterday, and he was raving about him. He is the most underrated football player on this team. And he is a real difficult person to deal with in coverage. Eagles fans probably don't know it because they didn't take advantage of it as much as they should in previous seasons. And we'll see how they do it under Kellen Moore with not only Kenny, but also Saquon. But Grant Calcaterra schooled him yesterday. And Grant's an improving player. And the coaching staff seems to like him. He's had 9 receptions in his first 2 seasons. He's going to be the second tight end. But, I mean, that's not a proven player at the bare minimum. And, it's been bad in coverage for Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, which, it's funny to hear you say that because he is that undersized linebacker. So you'd almost expect, all right, maybe he's got some speed and he's decent in coverage, but he just struggles in the run support. It's been the opposite with him. John, is there any linebacker on the team right now that looks good in coverage? I mean, you heard Vic Fangio talk about you need linebackers that can cover. Nakobe Dean is evidently not that guy. Is there anybody on the team that is that guy?
Well, I brought up Zach. I gave him my practice ball yesterday. Zach Ball, he made a tremendous stop on Saquon. Sniffed out a screen, a misdirection screen with a ton of motion and designed to test the discipline of the defense. And like I said, he looked like Luke Kuechly, man. He looked like he knew what was coming, and he was He was basically there before Saquon was. He knew it, and that was very impressive. And I was even more impressed when I asked him about it after practice. He said, "Yeah, but I also lost my discipline in a red zone drill when he allowed a rollout naked bootleg touchdown." So, to me, he seems like a smart football player. Seems like he gets it. And I always say, people talk about athleticism. I always talk about Jack Del Rio. People know him as a coach, but they don't know he was a great linebacker, Pro Bowl linebacker in his playing days. He wasn't very fast, but he's one of the best nickel linebackers I've ever seen, just because he understood. He was such a smart player, such a high football IQ, understood where he had to be, understood zone coverage, understood the angles, how to take things away. I don't think the Eagles have that player, to be honest.
Interesting to hear you say that, though, about Zach Bond. I think when we signed him, he was kind of brought in to be almost like that pass rushing linebacker. But now you're saying he's been decent in coverage. I mean, maybe he really will be the starting linebacker. So we'll see what they end up doing at that position. John, let's get a preview, though, real quick of the day. Give us a rundown on who's speaking today, what you're going to see from practice, or at least what you're expecting from practice, with who's talking beforehand, and then just what you're going to see down there for practice number 9 at NovaCare Complex.
Kellen Moore's going to talk before practice.
Okay, so not a lot of headlines coming.
No, Kellen is not going to. More Shane Steichen than Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
Not going to give up a lot, but we'll try to pepper him to get some things. I assume by this point the entire offense is installed, so maybe I'll ask him that, where he is in that aspect of it. But certainly Jalen's ball security, and if that's been an emphasis, or it's just been natural, that's kind of interesting, because it has been tremendous. And then as far as the practice, we don't know basically if they're going to be in pads or not until we get out there, how long the practice is going to be, things like that. And the same with the players who are going to talk afterward. That's always a fluid situation. If somebody has a good practice, we'll request them. So all of that is sort of stuff done on the fly, during the day. But this is the third of 4 consecutive practices, which is a long stretch, and they were in pads in a very hot day. I'm guessing they might scale back a little bit. It won't be a green practice. The Eagles put colors on their practice. The green is the highest level. I'm guessing it's going to be a yellow practice, a little bit more laid back, but that's just pure speculation.
We'll see what they end up doing today. John, thanks for joining in, man. Remember, everybody, we have our nighttime edition of Birds 365 tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. J-Mac, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate you checking in from the car. Get down there safely. We'll be following your reports all day long.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac joining us here on Football 24/7 this morning. Always does great work. Love talking to John, getting his perspective on things. We talked about some things in the open, and John gave us some clarity on them. Very interesting to hear that about Zach Bond, everybody. I mean, I thought he was going to be a one-trick pony type of linebacker where they brought him in to be the guy on the edge that potentially gets after the quarterback. Now John's saying he looks like the best linebacker in coverage. He seems like, even when he talked about it, as John pointed out, taking accountability for where he messed up. So obviously trying to get better in coverage and be that all-around linebacker for this team. Vic likes him. They continue to trot him out at the first-team defense. I would not write off Zach Bond. He could be our starting linebacker in week 1 alongside Devin White. I'm not sure what that means for Nakobe Dean. Look, I don't want to write Nakobe Dean off yet. He's only, remember, first year he was behind TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. So you're not going to really play when you have guys who are playing like that and playing good football, especially in your rookie campaign as a 3rd-round pick. And last year he got injured. So he played, whatever it was, 4 or 5 games or somewhere in that range. I don't even think he's played 5 full games in his NFL career. And now this is year 3, coming back from an injury. I don't want to write him off yet, but I tell you what, it hasn't been positive. The reports, what you're seeing from it's just training camp. It's just August 6th when the games start. Nobody's going to remember, what we're talking about right now. It's all going to be dictated by what he does when the games are being played and when the snaps count. So I'm not writing him off yet, but I'm just starting to lose that internal optimism I was having about Nakobe Dean. It's slipping quick. I don't know what he's going to be on this team. And if he's not anything, what does that mean for our linebackers? What does that mean for our defense as a whole? And I think those are fair questions to have. And then the other one was Bryce Huff that John talked about, where, there's a lot of expectations. And, I thought John kind of played a political answer a little bit on, hey, how does he look compared to Hassan Reddick? When you have a great player, I get it. It's not a game, and you can't see it like it is a game, but you can see it. Like John talks about AJ and Devontae in practice. He's like, those guys are some good football players. I think Hassan probably looked like that. Maybe not his first year, and John said that he doesn't remember ever saying Hassan looked like a beast in practice, but we haven't seen much from Bryce Huff, so we're going to see what he is. A lot of that pass rush is relying on Bryce Huff, and I'm not sure what he will be. So we will continue to follow it all along. Suplex City checks in. I want to thank everybody, by the way, for being here. A lot of good comments, as always. Make sure you guys like the show. It's the best thing you can do to help us grow. So if you support the channel, if you like the content, if you want to see us continue to grow, and succeed in this YouTube landscape, if you like the show, consider becoming a channel member for financial support. We appreciate that very much. Suplex says, agreed, Xander. They should have gotten Dean more in his rookie year when they were torching teams. Yeah, but, they had good linebackers on the field, Suplex. They're not going to take those guys off the field just to play a rookie, projecting for a couple years out. That's the problem. I do hear you. You had a couple of those games where maybe you could have went to Nakobe Dean or at least rotated him in to get more snaps. I think he played like 36 snaps his rookie year. So he didn't play much, but we're going to see how it plays out. We'll see. I'm going to go to some of our comments. Say Quads is in here. What's up, brother? Appreciate you being here. Daz says we don't play rookies. Daz, I know you're high on Dean, or I know you at least like the player and you're not ready to write him off yet. I'm curious to think, where are you, Daz, on what Nakobe Dean is right now? I don't want to be too pessimistic on the guy. I'm not ready to write him off, like I said, but I'm just kind of losing the optimism that I had on him. And I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair to him. Maybe I got to give him a chance to get out there and prove it. Where are you, Daz, on Nakobe Dean? I know you like the player. I've seen you kind of, going back and forth with some of our members in the chat. Daz checks in, says, he needs to stay healthy, but I know what he's capable of. Yeah, I would agree with that first part. He needs to stay healthy. I would disagree with the back part. I don't know what he's capable of. I think we saw him when he was great in college. He was a great green dot in Georgia. He played with a lot of the guys he's playing here with now, and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, and even Keely Ringo in the back. So let's see, but I hope he can be something. And I would agree with this too, Dank, where you check in and say, let Dean play a damn game. You're right. We got to get to week 1 and we got to see, what he does when the games are being played, not when you're talking about practice. It's not everything. So we'll see what he can do. Perez checks in. What's up, Perez? Xander, do you think it's important that we start our defense against Baltimore preseason game Friday? I think it's important. My opinion doesn't mean much. I don't think the Eagles organization is going to put a lot of their starters out there. I think you will see some of the guys we have questions on. Like I think you'll see maybe even Nakobe Dean. I think you'll see the young corner, Quinyon Mitchell. I think you'll see maybe even Zach Bond out there. But I think you're not going to see Jalen Carter. You're probably not going to see Jordan Davis. You're definitely not going to see Darius Slay. So we'll see what they're going to do. But I don't think they're going to put too many people out there for that preseason game. It's just hasn't been their philosophy. It's an organizational thing. I think they value keeping their players healthy more than they do the preseason snaps. So we'll see what they're doing. Saquads checks in. Vic is going to value the preseason games, I think, and play guys. I agree with that. I just don't know if Vic will have final say. If Howie says, look, we're sitting these guys, Vic is not going to be able to override him. And it's like I said, it's an organizational thing. So we'll see what they end up doing. Is Mekhi Garner injured? Mekhi Garner hasn't played the last couple of practices. I think he is nursing an injury. I don't think it's serious, but he hasn't been out there. I'll get the full update from him on John tonight on Birds 365. Thanks for checking in. Suplex. Saquad says, "Yeah, Vic may not get the chance, but he will try for everything it feels like." I agree. It does seem like he's not. I like that about Vic, is that a lot of coaches, when they come to Philly, you kind of see him tiptoeing around the front office, at least from the outside perspective, where they're not going to push back on what Howie wants or what anybody else wants. And I think Vic does. He does push the needle, and he does, make them say no almost, right? Where it's like, I'm not just going to go with the status quo. Tell me why I won't be able to play my players. And I know you're going to make the final decision, but he's going to push back on it. And maybe that will have an impact. We'll see how it plays out. Eduardo says Vic owns that defense. That's his team. I think he already made that clear to Howie when they brought him in. Yeah, but Eduardo, you're talking about two different things. I agree. It's his defense, but that doesn't mean Howie's going to let him put guys out there. Howie's in control of the roster. Remember that. He's not in control of the defense. He's in control of the roster, though. And if Howie doesn't want a guy to go out there, he's not going to go out there. So don't ever forget that. This is Howie's football team. This is not Vic Fangio's football team. It's Vic Fangio's defense. It's not his football team. So, I don't think he's going to overrule Howie, and I don't think any coach will ever be able to overrule Howie here in Philly. That's just the way our setup is. So we'll see what they're able to do. I'm going to get out of here, guys. Good show this morning. I just wanted to get live for you guys, get that preview. I like to go live at 8. Remember, we have Birds 365 tonight from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Football Show 2 to 6, and I will try and do another show again at noon to recap the practice. Either noon or 12:30. Yesterday I went live at 12:30. I might try and go live at noon today, depending on when they wrap up the practice and when I'm available to do it. So we'll see what they do. Sliger, one last question here, says, "You're saying that Roseman will tell Fangio who to play?" No, not during the regular season, Sliger, but in the preseason, yes, I am. If he doesn't want players to go out there, they're not going to go out there. No. In the preseason, yes, that's what I am telling you. Now, I don't think so in the season, but preseason, look, if Fangio's like, I want this guy to get out there on preseason to get his reps in, and Howie says no, Howie's winning that argument every time. So we'll see, what ends up happening, but maybe not. Yeah, we'll see. Big Pickin', what's up, Big Pickin'? Thanks for being here, brother. One of our channel members. Look at our channel members in here. Twiz, Jig is a channel member. These are all guys who are eligible for those Saquon Barkley jerseys we're going to be giving away during the season. Suplex City's a member. Thank you, Suplex. Appreciate that. Any other members in here that I am missing? Mr. Perez is a member. Oh, no, he's not. Perez, you're a member on your other channel. You got like multiple channels because people were blocking you, but you're a member on your other channel. A couple of memberships dropped off because of the James Carver gifted them, and I guess they expired. So hopefully you guys join back as a member, can get those emojis flowing, support the channel a little bit, and be entered into the Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway. We're giving away one jersey a week every time Saquon goes over 125 all-purpose yards, catching and receiving. Rushing and receiving. So that's going to be excited. Hopefully we give away one every week. I don't know if he's going to do that. That would be a historic season, 2,000 plus yards, but excited to give away the Saquon jerseys this year. Must be a channel member to win one, so consider joining to support the channel. We appreciate that. Thanks everybody for being here today. I don't know how many likes we're up to on the show. Hopefully we're close to 100. I don't think so. We've only been live for 49 minutes. So let's get those likes up. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for checking in. We'll be live again all afternoon with the National Football Show and Birds 365, and then another recap at noon to recap practice number 9. Thanks everybody. We will catch you later on JAKIB Sports.
EAGLES, Eagles.